Hi everyone, I'm back with analyzing poetry on the CIE GCSE English Literature curriculum for 2022. Today we're talking about Rhyme of the Dead Self by A.R.D. Fairburn, and first we're going to talk about the author biography, then the summary, and then line-by-line analysis. Arthur Rex Dougart Fairburn is a famous New Zealand poet who was born in 1904 and died in 1957. He was the eldest of three sons and attended Auckland Grammar School, leaving with no qualifications and beginning work for an insurance company. He worked there for 6 years and then he went to Norfolk Island, and upon his return he was formally unemployed for 4 years, but during that time he did some freelance writing. After that he went to England, where he met another New Zealand poet, Geoffrey de Montague, and with his help published He Shall Not Rise, his first poetry collection. Rhyme of the Dead Self is actually in that poetry collection. From then on, he continued to work and write. He held some administrative positions. He had a teaching job at the Department of English at Auckland University College. He served in the army. Basically, he did a lot of work and he still continued to write, and he published a major poetry collection volume in 1952. After that, he only wrote light verses and died in 1957 of cancer. Posthumously, the letters of A.R.D. Fairburn were published by Loris Edmond. Remember that name? Do you ever find yourself cringing at your younger self, thinking you were too awkward, too quiet, too loud? Well, the speaker in this poem hates his younger self so much that he describes how he violently kills him. He writes in the present perfect tense that he has taken everything he was and choked the young man so that he can't come back and haunt him. And he strangles him to make sure that what happened before never rises up, and this naive young man he was before dies, and he replaces him as he is right now. Fairburn employs carefully chosen vocabulary to show his desire and passion and violence in how he wants to leave that part of himself behind, and it also shows his transformation and a sort of rite of passage into adulthood. And as a personal response, you can comment whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, anything you like. So this is just another pointer for the AO4 section. I have kept the summary brief because I'm sure that we're all busy preparing for the exam, and let's move on to the line-by-line analysis. So a couple words on the structure before we start. You can also read the poem right now to remind yourself. There are 3 stanzas separated into 3 quatrains. A quatrain is 4 lines. This repetition of 3 is very significant because it's an important biblical allusion that is actually directly referenced later in the text. Christ rose on the 3rd day after his crucifixion. There are 3 stanzas, so this poem is in a way like the 3rd day. However, the speaker has made sure that no one rises, and this is significant in its own way because you can claim that this is it. This is the final transformation. The rhyme scheme is A-B, and there are half rhymes interspersed throughout the poem, which we'll get to in a minute. So, tonight I have taken all that I was and strangled him, that pale, lily-white lad. The first line is in iambic pentameter, showing how his heartbeat is very steady, his resolve to end things with his younger self. And the second line emphasizes the phrase pale lily white lad, with these last words particularly stressed, almost as if he faltered a little bit. Yes, because the rhyme scheme is slightly broken, but at the same time he refuses to stop. He emphasizes these words because this is what he believes is wrong with his previous self, along with notions of love and other things. White is a color that has connotations of innocence and peace, and lad is a very young man. So from the get-go we are presented with this image of a delicate, maybe fragile man who's pale and innocent, and he's unaware of the world around him. And it's a very sharp contrast to the speaker that we have today, to see the change that has affected him so much. And he strangles him, which is a very personal and a very violent crime, at odds with the image of this young man he used to be that's presented to us now. He's slowly asphyxiating his younger self in order to see the world through only his eyes. He's killing that other part of himself, and there's not really a need for this because we know that they can both exist. This is what they have done before, but in the eyes of the speaker, the lad must die. And lad, as I said, is a young boy, and it's typically a term that you use with specifically young boys. Happy boys that you can't really call men, like younger people, like teenagers. This is kind of the connotation. So because we have someone who's not quite a man, who's still a sort of child, it's again this innocence that's presented to us. And so when the speaker kills the lad, he kills his youth and innocence and something not quite like the adult world around him. All that I was also seems pointed. He was this pale lad before, and that's it. So again, this like pure, cleanest, this most innocent form. And now he completes his transformation utterly because he cannot turn back. He cannot go back to innocence, especially since he has his younger self's blood on his hands. He has quite literally committed a sin, committed murder, so he can't go back to what he was before. I have joked him with these hands, these claws, catching him as he lay dreaming in his bed. So again, we repeat and drive home the confession that the reader is witnessing a murder, and so the speaker is telling the reader about what he has done. And on the theme of transformation, the speaker's hands morph into claws, no longer something human. It can be a sort of biblical allusion to a creature that's perhaps lycanthropic in nature, I guess you can say. So here is the passage I was looking down to read, describing a sort of werewolf in nature, I guess. Basically, the context behind this is that person mentioned here went insane and ran away into the woods, and I guess Fairburn can be implying that this requires a sort of insanity, simply because this is such a difficult task to get rid of not only yourself, but to at the same time commit murder too. There's also a sense of, I don't want to say absurdity, but for example, the speaker says catching him as he lay a dreaming, and catching implies he was running away, but again we have this juxtaposition, and it's a sort of ridiculing from the author's point that the speaker has this carefully planned out, that he's thinking about how he is going to murder his younger self, and how, well, he has motive behind his actions, and his younger self is just calmly lying down there. He's not even prepared to face the onslaught of his older version. And dreaming also perfectly fits in with the other adjectives used to describe the boy, because he's this naive human being, and so he's just in his own sort of world, and so it's even sadder that older speaker has to catch him. In this stanza there is no punctuation except for the full stop and the end, so because there are 3 stanzas there are in total 3 full stops, and there are however enjambments. As a result, except for this, the poem pretty much flows uninterrupted, and I think it gives the poem a sort of feverish nature, if you will, almost as if the speaker is speaking like this and he's recounting his actions and everything is just without stop. However, the enchantments are the breath before each word, because he's so emotional and driven and passionate. Also serves, I believe, as a function to show him being disconnected, because he's quite literally killing a part of himself, and so because he's not full anymore, this disconnection is present, because if it really was as feverish as it is presented to be, it could have been just like one line. The enjambments, where the new lines are, also something to take note of. They have rising strength at the end of the lines, also suggestive of growth, and for example the half rhymes of lad and bed, they too reflect the process of transformation, and the A-B rhyme scheme sort of binds the lines together, if you know what I mean, also showing the duality between his younger self and his present state self. Then chuckling, I dragged out his foolish brains, that were full of pretty love tales hied the holly, and emptied them, whole as boneless to the trains, those dreams of love, oh, what ruinous folly. This is something that I think you should mention when you're talking about personal response, how his laugh sounds like, if you will, because it merely says chuckling, and chuckling can be very different depending on the situation. But please, when you're talking about personal response, try and not to use I, because it's a bit unprofessional. So in case you're new to these videos, I usually analyze the poem, and I also try and comment on things that you can use in your personal response, because that is one of the AO4 targets presented. Dragged out, so it shows how heavy the brains are, because they're filled with pretty love tales, hi ho the holly, and the speaker has shattered his head like his hopes, and he is struggling with the weight of love that the boy just had, not only his heart, I guess, but his thoughts. Here is where we finally have a justification, like, who hurt you, you know? Because we can see that perhaps his younger self is in love, he's thinking about love, he has all these dreams about the future, and then he got his heart broken. So rather than having to go through that again, or maybe reliving that experience in other women, or just like the passage of time, the speaker in a way wants to kill the boy before that happens, to protect himself against any further injuries. And hi ho the holly is an aspirant H, and it's actually, I believe, a reference to As You Like It by Shakespeare. So there there is a song in the play, and there's a quote, "Most friendship is feigning, most loving mere folly, then hi-ho the holly." So there's also a contrast between the sadness of the poem and the jolly phrase that's hi-ho the holly. This way, Fairburn shows how the speaker is happy to be doing this sad thing, and I think he recognizes that this is not really good, this is murder, right? But still he proceeds with it. And also in the song, it talks about how even cold winds are better than some things like the disillusionment of love. And for the speaker in Fairburn poetry, love tales, while beautiful, are pain. And so thus he empties them holus bolus to the trains. And so holus bolus means everything at once, and he wants to flush it and to watch it drain away and just slowly disappear from his life, and to be able to protect himself emotionally. And also in As You Like It, there are themes of pretending, and I guess he also used this as, well, out of sight, out of mind, right? And once it's down the drain, it's as if it never really existed at all. And he calls these dreams of love ruinous folly because they ruined him, and he can't commit to anything anymore. He can't fully give his heart in fear of what's going to happen. And in a way, his actions are self-defending rather than attacking, because he is just trying to avoid the pain that comes with love sometimes, and just seeking to fully close himself off by getting rid of that naivety and approaching love with a sort of skepticism. He's dead pale youth, and he shall not rise on the third day or any other day. So the speaker emphasizes that there is no hope of survival on the third day for his younger self. Third day after being crucified, Jesus rose and represented peace and love, and he took on all the crimes of humanity. And so thus Fairburn shows that, well, he took on all the sins of humanity for sure, right? He's getting rid of his emotions and all of that, but there will be no peace and love rebirthing. And the phrase "shall not rise" almost seems to scorn the commandments a little bit. He's sort of ordering himself, well, you can't rise because you're dead, I have killed you. Sloughed like a so many S's, the sibilants here. Loud like a snakeskin, there he lies, and shall not trouble me again, for I. He sheds his use like a snake, and he emerges into the world instead of peace and love as this new cynic, skeptic, shielding himself from love and from emotions. For A means forever, but it can also mean for yes, because I can mean yes. So in a way, it's almost as if, yes, there's no peace and love for A, forever, but there's also no saying yes to living, if you know what I mean. So it's almost as if Fairburn is saying that, yes, of course, living and love has its pain, but without that pain, are you really living? And it's just this emotional message. And I think that if you're revising and you're struggling to remember the poems because you don't really understand it, poetry is not your thing, I think you can just remember the popular phrase, "no pain, no gain." Quite a funny phrase to apply in this context, and hopefully it will be helpful, as well as make you think about the deeper meanings behind this poem and how it makes you feel. The speaker liberated himself of the past, but you can't help but wonder if you can ever fully liberate yourself. Can you ever really get rid of that part, metaphorically kill it? Or is it always present in you? And is it really that good of an action, even if you ignore the moral aspects of it? Does it leave you complete? Does it leave you incomplete? And also you can think about why Fairburn wanted to kill that part of himself. Is it just love, or is it disillusionment with life, caused perhaps by his meaningless job in an insurance company? Because I don't think he enjoyed it very much. So I think this is another thing that you can comment on, how much of an influence Fairburn's biography played in his writing and this poem in particular. Alright, that concludes the video. Thank you so much for watching. So many things went wrong during the filming of this video, but I hope you still enjoyed it. I do apologize for the camera quality. That is because my camera is currently experiencing problems of its own. So yeah, please do check out my other literary content. It would mean a lot. If this video helped and you want to thank me, then please like, leave a comment. It really does mean a lot to me, and I love replying to all your comments. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and see you next week.